God morning, God morning. Happy Tuesday. Hopefully everybody's doing all right today. This week we've been talking about a garden that God planted for man. And we talked yesterday how God planted a beautiful garden and put within this garden everything that man needs. And that garden is a therapeutical garden in that it can feed man both physically and spiritually because so much is going on in our world today. And so God planted a garden. Know that sometimes our minds need to be fed as we go through depression, anxiety, stress, as we go through the trials and tribulations of life. Our minds need to be fed in the right way. And God planted that garden with a tree of life in it, with a tree of knowledge of good and evil in it, to feed our minds as we go through this world. Because many of us are not lacking physically. Physically, we are full, but we're lacking spiritually. And so that garden that God created, especially for man, is filled with food to feed his mind, his spirit, man's soul. Isn't that a good God? And so today we're going to talk about God's irrigation system. He has an irrigation system that he created to water this garden. God morning to my cousin Sharon. God bless you and your family this morning. God created an irrigation system to continually flow into this garden, to keep this garden growing. The Bible says it was a river that flowed into the garden that split off into four different rivers. And so that water, fresh water, caused the things that God had planted in the garden to grow. And it even talked about there was gold in this garden. Ain't that something? How God, in his garden, he grows gold and all different kind of different natural resources and beautiful stones. He ain't just growing vegetation, but his garden is full of everything that man needs, both physically and spiritually. So he even talked about how in this garden, all different type stones, and it said gold is in this garden. Isn't God a good God to provide for our every need? He built this big old garden of Eden, and then he put a Pacific place here on the east side of Eden, especially for man. It was specially put there for man. Isn't God good to create a spot, our own little section of the Garden of Eden, and then filled it with everything that we need? That's a good God. And so we need to be thankful today of how caring God is to make sure that our every need is taken care of. And that's the way a parent does as their children grows up. They make sure that their every need is taken care of. And God did that for us. All right. So that's just a few minutes to talk about God's irrigation system, how he had water from a river to split off into four different rivers to water the garden that he planted for man. Man ain't had to spend not one penny, not a single dime to keep the irrigation system going. God had it naturally going from a river. Isn't God good? All right, y'all have a blessed day. And as always, keep God first in your life.